You know what makes One Piece so special? If you look at most other shonen anime and manga, and you think of the most iconic moments from those series, it's going to be things like Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time, or Naruto vs Sasuke, or Rock Lee vs Gaara, or United States of Smash, or Hinokami Kagura. The list goes on and on, but what these most iconic moments from other shonen series tend to have in common is that they are all fight scenes or power-ups. But with One Piece, almost all of its iconic moments that have been immortalized among the fandom are actually dramatic character moments. Moments of powerful emotion that are not battle scenes at all, completely removed from any action, just products of profound storytelling. It's crazy to think that across 1100 chapters, while One Piece certainly has countless iconic battle scenes, they are almost always secondary to its story moments. And it's absolutely insane to think through the sheer number of individual dramatic panels and individual lines of dialogue that have become considered all-time classics by the reader base. So let's go through the entire story from start to finish, and pull the most iconic moment from each arc, to compile the ultimate list of all of One Piece's greatest moments. But before we get into it, I want to share a trick for getting to stream more movies, TV shows, and animes that you can't watch right now. That's by using Surfshark VPN, the sponsor for this video. Surfshark is an award-winning VPN, and what it lets me do is change my location to anywhere on the globe. That's a huge help because where I'm at in the United States, sometimes the streaming service libraries are a little sparse. But by switching my location to other countries, suddenly I can get access to a better version of Netflix where there are more movies and shows that are available for free streaming. So I'd recommend just trying a VPN out. Just turn it on and shuffle through different countries and see how many more options suddenly become available in your Netflix library and other streaming libraries. And the best part is, VPNs are also great to just turn on while surfing the web even if you're not switching locations, because they hide all your data when you're online. So with Surfshark VPN on, no one knows what I'm doing online, my activity is completely hidden and untraceable, not even Surfshark knows what I'm doing. So if you want to try a VPN, you can get Surfshark right now for up to 6 additional months for free. Just hit the link in the description below for surfshark.deal/Morge and use promo code MORGE. Link in the description below. So to begin with, Romance Dawn. Now the immediate answer you might jump to here for the most iconic moment from Romance Dawn would be Shanks giving Luffy the hat. This is of course an image that is burned into most readers' brains, and it's basically the start of Luffy's entire journey. But there's actually one moment from Romance Dawn that is surprisingly even more iconic than even this scene, and that's the very first page of the story. We all know this one by heart. Wealth, fame, power, there was a man who had acquired everything this world had to offer. His final words: "My treasure, if you want it, you can have it. I left it all in one piece." There are very arguably no words in One Piece more recognizable than this. I think every One Piece fan knows this one by heart, at least thanks to the anime at this point. So while Shanks giving Luffy the hat is extremely memorable for kicking off Luffy's story, it's hard to beat Roger's execution for kicking off the entire story. For Romance Dawn's most iconic moment, I give it to Roger's execution just barely. Next we have Orangetown. Now this and Syrup Village are two really tough arcs to name a most iconic moment from, simply because One Piece's storytelling was a little too simplistic at this point in time to truly produce memorable scenes. I think from Orangetown many readers have a strong attachment to Cho-Cho, so I'm going to say the scene of him and the burning house. And from Syrup Village, this one may be a little bit less discussed by readers, but the scene where Usopp disbands the Usopp pirate crew is one of Oda's earliest attempts at a powerful character moment. However, from Baratie is where One Piece really takes off. The entire Zoro-Mihawk duel is littered with iconic moments, from Mihawk pulling out the little knife, to Zoro refusing to back down even if it means death, to Mihawk giving Zoro the scar, but I think the moment it all culminates in, with Zoro breaking down and making the oath to one day defeat Mihawk, with Mihawk welcoming the challenge, was the first truly great One Piece moment outside of Chapter 1, as this was the moment that really hammered in the type of ideals and messaging that One Piece is all about, the power of dreams and ambition, as well as the grand journey the heroes have ahead of them to accomplish said dreams. Arlong Park is easy. Nami's "Help Me" is a watershed moment in the series. Coming off the back of the first truly tragic backstory, the "Help Me" moment and Luffy's emphatic response is probably the first time that many readers felt that special One Piece rush of feel-good emotions, as it's time for Luffy to save the day and make everything right. Many fans say that anyone trying the series for the first time needs to get to at least Arlong Park, and it's largely because of this moment, as this scene is where you finally understand that One Piece's actual dramatic character writing is something special. Loguetown is a very tough call because it's such a short arc with two scenes that stand out as particularly iconic. One is Zoro challenging fate to earn the Sandai Kitetsu. The other is Luffy's quote-unquote death and miraculous salvation. I personally tend to lean towards Zoro's Sandai Kitetsu moment as it's my favorite moment of the arc, and it's actually one of my favorite moments for the character in the entire series. This is easily the most dramatic way for Zoro to get a new sword that we've ever had. But if we're saying which of the two scenes is more iconic, I think Luffy on the platform and his final smile before being saved by lightning is probably a bit more vivid in most fans' memories, so I'll tip my hat to that as the more iconic of the two scenes. And Reverse Mountain is a fairly short and simple one. I think it's literally just the moment that the Straw Hats come down the mountain and see the giant whale. It's pretty straightforward, I know, but there's not a lot else that happens this arc, so the simple imagery of a giant whale greeting them at the start of the Grand Line is what tends to stick out. Now with Whiskey Peak, this isn't a moment per se, but it is the first One Piece arc where I'd say that an action scene actually is the most iconic part of it. Zoro versus the 100 bounty hunters is one of the coolest sequences in early One Piece, between the reveal that the entire town is filled with bounty hunters who then in turn get hunted by the OG bounty hunter of the series, who casually takes care of them all by himself. It's just a really fun, chaotic scene all around. In Little Garden, I think the most iconic moment is the final moment of the arc, with Dory and Broggy finally showcasing the full power of the Giants of Elbaf and exactly why they are legendary warriors who once terrorized the seas, as they easily blast a hole in the island-sized goldfish. Luffy himself sums it up best after being freed from the goldfish. The Giants are just so ridiculously big. Killing the Island Eater is the perfect way to put an exclamation mark on this surreal adventure, as Little Garden was the first truly fantastical island that the Straw Hats visited in the Grand Line. Now in Drum Kingdom, I'm very sad to say that due to some incredibly stupid memes, the most iconic moment is now probably Chopper crying after seeing the Sakura blossoms. But let's pretend the memes didn't exist, in which case the most iconic moment from this arc, and one of the all-time classic bits of dialogue in the entire story, is Hiruluk's speech explaining that a man dies when he is forgotten. Nowadays, we think of One Piece as being filled to the brim with powerful proclamations and quotes, but if you really think back, this Hiruluk speech was the first one in the entire series. A man dies when he is forgotten is the first case of Oda's timeless one-liners. Alabasta saves the best for last. In an arc that was all about friendship, there's one image saved for the very final page of the arc that sums it up better than any dialogue could, and that's the simple shot of the Straw Hats raising their fists marked with an X in silent unity with their friend who they have to leave behind. This single image probably sums up what it means to be a member of the Straw Hat crew better than anything else in the story, and there's a reason it's such a popular wallpaper for so many fans. In Jaya, while I'm tempted to put Luffy's extremely satisfying punch against Bellamy, the even more iconic moment is Blackbeard's debut. Here we get another one of Oda's timeless one-liners. As the greatest villain of the series, the eventual arch-nemesis of Luffy imparts some grand wisdom, that a man's dream never ends. Much like Hiruluk's line, this moment has become one of One Piece's most quoted dialogues. Now with Skypiea, there are two ways to look at it. On the one hand, you could go by what is considered the most iconic moment in the modern day. Now that we have a lot more context, most would say that Luffy dancing at the bonfire is the most iconic moment in Skypiea. This is obviously due to the newfound lore that we have with Nika and so on. However, for the decades before we got this reveal, I think the single moment from Skypiea that was most referenced and most reposted in images and clips was the unforgettable Enel face. This is maybe the single most iconic reaction face in all of One Piece. The moment a delusional, arrogant, narcissistic, self-proclaimed god realizes that he is absolutely and utterly fucked. Even to this date, you often see people referencing Enel's reaction with regard to new villains. I saw in Wano readers asking, do you think we will ever see Kaido make an Enel face? Or even recently, I've seen people discuss, do you think Luffy will make Imu make an Enel face? So you know what, just for the simple longevity of this moment, and the fact that it's an instant classic the moment that you actually read the Skypiea arc, as opposed to Luffy dancing, which only really becomes a huge deal in retrospect once you get to Wano, I'm going to say that the Enel face is the most iconic moment of Skypiea. And if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this every week. And make sure to get your One Piece inspired clothing today in the Morge store. We have hoodies, sweatshirts, and t-shirts. And get your one-of-a-kind puzzle of all major One Piece characters. Link in the description below. In Long Ring Longland, the most iconic moment is a fight scene this time, with Aokiji crushing the crew. Considering the rest of the arc was the mostly comedic Davy Back fight, the sudden shift to an admiral casually crushing the monster trio and threatening to kill Robin is a strikingly vivid memory for most readers, and it stands out as the first encounter for the Straw Hats with a Marine Admiral, and simultaneously the first time that the entire crew is defeated at once. Water 7 and Enies Lobby I consider one arc because it literally is one story arc dealing with the exact same conflict and the exact same villains and very clearly following the beat-for-beat structure of a singular narrative arc. And the most iconic moment from this storyline is, of course, I Wanna Live. I personally consider this moment, and really this entire chapter, to be the emotional high point of all of One Piece. And I've done a full Enies Lobby analysis breaking down why that is that you can watch here. For most readers, this is understandably at least a top 5 all-time great moment in the series. After Enies Lobby, we have Thriller Bark, which is another easy pick. Nothing happened. Nothing to talk about here, this is almost unquestionably the single greatest moment for the second most important character in the story. The line itself, nothing happened, has taken on a legend of its own in the fandom, as arguably the most badass line ever uttered in the series. What more needs to be said? Although if you want an elaboration, I go in depth in this video that you can click on here. And then Sabaody. Oh man, just back-to-back-to-back arcs with iconic scenes. If Nothing Happened is indisputably Zoro's greatest moment, then Luffy punching the Celestial Dragon is considered by many readers at least to be Luffy's greatest moment. And it's so easy to understand why. This is the ultimate act of rebellion, perfectly encapsulating what the hero represents, both freedom and righteous justice. Often referred to as the most satisfying punch in all of One Piece, it's again interesting to note that One Piece's greatest punch isn't even part of some epic shonen battle. This isn't a fight scene, rather it's a singular, one-and-done dramatic character moment of defiance and comeuppance. Amazon Lily is a tough call because I don't know if there's a standout iconic moment here. Luffy releasing Conqueror's Haki for the first time was a big deal, but I think him sacrificing his ship to help Marguerite and the Amazons may stand out even more. But this isn't about what I think is best, again it's about most iconic. And it's personally really hard for me to say what moment from Amazon Lily is most talked about in the fandom. I'm going to take a guess and say that it's Luffy making the deal to save Marguerite, but let me know in the comments below. Impel Down is a similarly tough call, but I do think that while Bon Clay's sacrifice and the Shichibukai team-up were all major highlights, the scene or image from Impel Down that I personally believe I've seen popularized the most is Luffy's final stand against Magellan. Maybe it's because it was the high point of tension in the arc, maybe it was just satisfying in a bittersweet way to see Luffy go down swinging against the Guardian of Hell himself, but I know to this day many people still remember the jet bazooka against Magellan very fondly. Marineford has probably the most iconic panel in the entire series, Ace's sacrifice for Luffy. There are not enough descriptors to explain how immortalized this singular image has become in the One Piece fandom. References, artworks, parodies, essays, so much has been made of this one moment. It's not worth beating a dead horse here, you already know what this is. The first major death in One Piece, the sheer unforgettable shock of Luffy actually losing the person he loved the most after fighting for him for 60 chapters straight, the clear, distinct turning point this moment became for the entire narrative, literally splitting the story into two halves. I don't know if any One Piece moment will ever be more iconic than this panel, as it just carries too much significance both in story and among the fanbase. But on the other hand, a nice counter moment comes in the post-Marineford arc of Luffy remembering what he still has, his friends. A lot happens post-Marineford, but this moment sticks out as an emotional reminder of what really matters amidst all the messiness in the world. Then in Return to Sabaody, a very short arc, it's pretty much just Luffy one-shotting the Pacifista. A simple but effective wow moment that communicates the impact of the time skip perfectly. Fishman Island is tricky, because I think a lot of people forget most of the actual plot moments of this arc. Like the Straw Hats stomp some fodder, and Vanderdecken throws a ship, and Shirahoshi cries a lot, but the real standouts are Otohime and Fisher Tiger's backstories. Yet, while they're great backstories, I don't know if any single moment is an iconic moment from either of them. So instead, I'll say there's one moment from Fishman Island that probably everyone remembers, a fitting conclusion to the themes of the arc, and that is Luffy and Jinbei sharing blood. It may not be something that readers list right away as their favorite One Piece moments, but it's definitely something meaningful that everyone remembers happened in this arc. Punk Hazard has only one option, and that's Law cutting Virgo and the entire damn mountain range at the same time. Coupled with Law's breaking the gears speech, this really hyped up readers on the character, but also for the epic moments to come throughout the rest of the time skip. Dressrosa's most iconic moment is 2 words: Gear 4th. You just had to be a part of the community at that point. There was so much discussion and debate throughout Dressrosa on whether or not Luffy had an ace up his sleeve, a new gear that he'd mastered in the time skip. And finally, at the climax of the arc, we got those 2 long-awaited words that we'd all been hoping for. Luffy had a 4th gear, and it absolutely delivered. Now, I know that the most iconic moments of some of the more recent arcs I've listed have been action or power-up moments, but Zou is a nice return to One Piece's usual form as another arc defined by a beautiful, dramatic moment. The one line that every single reader remembers from Zou, which was for a long time the best written moment post-time skip, Raizo Dono is safe. Yes, Zou had some good lore drops after this, but writing-wise, this was the moment that went down as a One Piece classic. Whole Cake Island had a lot of great character moments, but I think what stood out most was the fight between Luffy and Sanji. I know many readers reference this as one of their favorite scenes in the entire series, and it is one of the more raw, emotionally charged moments in One Piece. Wano has 2 options that are competing here. Gear 5th seems like the obvious pick, but for a long time up till the Gear 5th chapter, the most iconic moment from Wano that everyone was talking about, and a panel that you still see posted everywhere, was actually Roger Laughed. I think there's no wrong option for the most iconic panel between these 2. I think Gear 5th slightly edges it in the fandom, but let me know if you think that was the right call in the comments below. And finally, Egghead Island. The most iconic moment from this arc so far is of course the end of Kuma's consciousness. Everything from the montage of Kuma running, to Vegapunk's final words summing up the impact of Kuma's life, to the beautiful shading, and of course the final line. This scene is one that readers will never forget. If we have to pull a single quote-unquote moment out of the whole thing as the most iconic, I think the page of Kuma running through the phases of his life stands out as stylistically memorable, as it feels like an anime montage put to paper, taking us through his entire layered and tragic life and everyone that he touched, while simultaneously subtly weaving in the hero's dance to really elevate the whole concept. So, One Piece, a story of countless unforgettable moments. Almost every arc has something iconic, and some arcs have so many it's hard to choose from. But let me know what picks you would change in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And you can get my extended thoughts on the most iconic moments that did not make the list, and some iconic moments in this video that I secretly don't care for on my weekly podcast by supporting me on Patreon. Just hit the link in the description below. And don't forget to get up to 6 additional free months of Surfshark VPN at surfshark.deal/Morge with promo code MORGE, link in the description below.